As you wake up this morning, Tigers are now 9-0 on the road in conference play. What have you made of what Will Wade has accomplished in his 2 years in Baton Rouge?
Well, guys, it's been remarkable, the turnaround so quickly. And the thing that stood out to me is just how mentally tough this team is. They've got a lot of new faces, a lot of freshmen playing key roles. To be able to go on the road and go 9-0 in the SEC is just incredible. And they've won so many tight games. Clearly, that's a point of emphasis with Will Wade and his staff. I mean, they work on these 6-minute games all the time. So this team doesn't panic when it's in a hostile environment, when they meet adversity in games. And I think that all goes back to, obviously, Tremont Waters, a tremendous point guard who made the key bucket last night to tie that game and send it to overtime. When you have a talent like that, everybody kind of feeds off the floor general. And I think this team's got a great shot to make a deep NCAA tournament run. And it's been a decade or so since we've said that about LSU basketball. So it's nice refreshing to be talking about college basketball in March.
You come from an area of the country that's psycho about college basketball in Kentucky up at Louisville. When you see this LSU team play, do they look like a one seed?
Oh, yes, definitely. I mean, the thing I like most about this team is they've got a little bit of everything. You know, they're not built like a lot of college teams today with just a few guards and one big man. I mean, this team has good size in obviously in Big B Williams and Nasri, but they also have good small forward type wing players and Emmett Williams, and then they have the tremendous point guard Waters, obviously shooting guard Skylar Mays. I mean, they have every piece that you need, and that gives them flexibility and versatility when they get in the tournament, and that's so important in the tournament because you just don't know what the matchups are going to be. You've got to have the versatility to combat all the different styles of play that you'll see in college basketball, and I think this team is built perfectly to win that way. Unfortunately, though, they play a lot of close games, so Tiger fans better get ready because I think they're going to have a lot of more nail biters on the way.
Jeff, are we making too much up on that stat that gets them ready for March? I mean, does that not mean anything?
I feel like they've been forged in the fire, man.
I agree, T-Bob. I mean, I think this team is built to win in March. I love the way Will Wade coaches his team. He lets them play, but they're still disciplined enough. I know they have every once in a while some turnover issues, but they get them down the court at a pretty solid pace. And I think with the guard play they have, Way Smart has come on, especially the last few weeks. I think he's gained a lot of confidence playing in place of Waters. They've got basically two lead guards, and most teams don't have one of the talent they have. So I think they're going to be very dangerous. And I will say this, the other thing I really love about this team, and it's been well documented, is just how well they offensive rebound. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a team go to the glass the way this LSU team does, and that will pay off when you inevitably are going to have those nights where the shot isn't falling, in the tournament especially. And if you can pound the glass the way LSU can, that makes up for a lot of sins.
Yeah, and then that's and how about Skylar Mays? 43 minutes last night from Mays, man. We even mentioned that this morning. Jeff, let's move on. Talk some Saints. Kind of a weird Saints offseason just because of all the deals that they made. They're just not that exciting of a draft setup for fans in terms of when the Saints have picks. But there are some trade rumors out there that are pretty interesting, mainly circling around Antonio Brown. I just saw on the ESPN ticker that they're expected to have the Steelers are expected to have a deal in place by Friday. Are the Saints in that mix for Antonio Brown? And would you bring him in to that locker room?
I would not doubt Sean Payton would have enormous interest in him. I mean, he always has talked highly of Antonio Brown. He loves having a playmaker like him on the perimeter. I think he would fit well in the Saints offense beside Mike Thomas. The thing I think the problem the Saints would have is in any kind of deal for him, I don't know what kind of assets they would have to trade to acquire him because there's going to be a fairly high market price for him. And then the other thing is, the salary cap. Would it be strictly a 1-year or 2-year rental? I think that's what would entice the Saints. They're going to pay Mike Thomas a huge contract here in a year or so. They're going to have to pay Alvin Kamara. They're soon going to have to start paying all these young stars. So they could fit Antonio Brown in, I think, in a very short-term window and convince him, hey, we're going to make a run and try and win another Super Bowl. But I don't think it would be a long-term acquisition. I think it would be more like a rental. But that said, I mean, Pittsburgh controls his rights. They're going to control where he goes, and they're like the Pelicans with Anthony Davis right now. They're only going to take the best deal they can get for the Steelers at this point, and I'm not sure the Saints are going to be able to offer that best deal to them right now.
Do you think so? You think it'll be more than just like a second-round pick?
I do. I think it'll end
Okay.
up being more than that. And I think if I'm Pittsburgh and I get, say, the Saints are the top offer, their second rounder, which is a good second round pick, do they go around and go to another team and say, look, we just got this, we can get more? I don't know what else the Saints could offer other than maybe Andres Pete. I think he's a viable option in a trade with another team, but Pittsburgh's offensive line is stacked, and I don't know what kind of need they would have for Andres Pete.
We're talking to Jeff Duncan, NOLA.com, Times-Picayune, the legend. You already know him. Jeff, what about Mark Ingram, man? What's the latest on Ingram and whether or not he'll remain in a Saints uniform?
Well, I don't think there'll be any latest until free agency starts and Mark and his agent have a chance to test the market. I think the Saints would love to wrap him up before then. I don't think that's going to happen because if I'm Ingram, I want to see what my market value is. I mean, you only get these opportunities maybe once or twice in your career. Mark probably owes it to himself to see what's available, and I think the Saints will allow that. They've done that in the past. They'll have a number in mind that they want to offer to Mark. I'm sure he knows that right now, and I bet both sides now are waiting to see what the return is on the open market for him. I think he wants to be here. I think the Saints want him here, but if somebody knocks him, out of the park with an offer, I think he may be moving on. It happened. We saw it last year with Senio Clemente at a different level, but the same thing happened. They wanted Senio back. He wanted to come back, and then Houston gave him the starting money, and he moved on.
So let's talk overall positions of need as we go into that. Oh, actually, you know what? Before we get there, I wanted to ask you this. So yesterday, Eric Weddle gets cut. You know how have Eric Weddle, Landon Collins, Tyrann Mathieu, all on the free agent market. I know that the Saints seem set at safety. Right? They cut Kurt Coleman because of the emergence of Von Bell. They like Marcus Williams. But like with that amount of talent out there at a price that it looks like is being driven down, the safeties market's down. Do they get involved there at all? Do they have some of those conversations?
I think they do. I think you're onto something there. I mean, Sean Payton, Dennis Allen, they love to have a veteran quarterback in the secondary. Think about it right now. Who in that group, in that position room, especially at safety, is a senior veteran player? They don't have one. That's what Kurt Coleman was. That's what Roman Harper was before that. I think Eric Weddle makes a ton of sense for the Saints. He's a guy I know they've been high on throughout his career. He's a guy probably at this stage of his career, he's had an unbelievable career, multiple Pro Bowls, all-pro player. I would see him landing somewhere like New Orleans or New England for a short-term period, much like Kurt Coleman, and would be the quarterback, the third safety in the room. I think there will be genuine interest. I haven't talked to anybody with the Saints that's indicated that, but that's only because I've been out at Mardi Gras for the last week. So.
Good for you. Good for you, Jeffrey. Jeff Duncan checking in with us this morning here on ESPN New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Alexandria. And one more. The Saints have been the class of the draft, it seems like, the last 2 years. They got 6 picks, but the first one is not until the second round. What do you think their strategy is this spring?
I really think they're going to – I hate to be the bailout best player available guy, but I'm telling you that's what they're going to do. Now, they'll go through free agency, plug as many roster holes as they feel are necessary as they can. They would love to get into the draft with already having another tight end, another wide receiver from free agency. I think those are the key acquisitions. They'd like to add some depth on the offensive and defensive line. Obviously, they need a defensive tackle because we don't know where Sheldon Rankins is at right now in his recovery. So there's some position needs that I think they will try to address in free agency with their lack of draft capital. And then I think it's just who falls to them that they have graded highest, and can they acquire that guy where they're at so low in the draft. But that's always been their strategy, and it will continue to be, I think, this year. They'll be active in free agency. But they don't have a ton of money to deal with, so they may have to make some other roster moves. Cap casualties could be a factor here with the Saints coming up just to try and get under the number so they can add some of these veterans to fill their holes.
At Jeff Duncan _ on Twitter. Jeff Duncan, a columnist over at NOLA.com and Times-Picayune, covering the Saints, New Orleans, as good as anybody. Get your head right, man. Thanks for waking up with us.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much, Jeff.
There he is, Jeff Duncan, checking in from the Big Easy with some news around the Saints and this LSU basketball.